Is Genie Plus worth it in 2023? Let's talk about it. So Genie Plus is the new paid FastPass system. It's instead of fast passes, we have lightning lanes and you have to pay for it. And so a lot of people, when they're budgeting for their trips, are trying to figure out, should they buy it? Is it worth it? Kind of trying to weigh the pros and cons. And so today I wanted to just kind of go over some of the thoughts and ideas to help you decide if it's worth it for you. First thing, let's talk about 5 things that you should know before we get into is it worth it discussion. One is that you don't have to buy it for every day of your trip. A lot of people do the math. They go, okay, we have 4 people in our party, we're there for a week, and do all the multiplication. It adds up to hundreds of dollars. And then they decide that's too expensive. But the truth is you don't have to buy it every day. So there is something in between the all or nothing approach. Maybe you just have it for a couple of days for some of the parks, but not all of them. Number 2 is you don't have to buy it for everyone in your party. So sort of along the same lines of when you're doing the math for everyone in your party, you may consider it only for people who are going to ride some of the more popular rides. Not everyone is going to be into the same things. And so maybe only some people get it, but not all. The third thing to know is that the price is dynamic. So it used to be a set fee per day of your trip, and now it changes based on the time of year and how busy it is. It can be $15 on the low end, or we've seen it as high as $29. I guess it could be higher than that if they decide to go up that high, but it will be dynamic. So when you're doing the math, you can't always predict what it's going to be because you don't know until you get there what the charge for that day is going to be. Number 4, there are no guarantees how many attractions you're going to get if you buy Genie Plus. Disney only says that you can get a few. We think you can get more if you're smart about it, but you never really know for sure until you're there. And lastly, you don't have to buy Genie Plus in order to have individual lightning lane selection. So that's an option as well. Maybe even if you decide you don't want to pay the daily fee for Genie Plus, you occasionally get individual lightning lane selection. And those are the fancy rides or the a la carte rides that are outside of Genie Plus and are charged on a per ride basis. Now let's talk about when Genie Plus is worth it in our opinion. One is when you just want to wait in as few lines as possible, no matter what it costs, right? And to be honest, this is where we fall for the most part. We are willing to pay for the experience. Although, the more people in your party, the more you really have to weigh the pros and cons because it really starts to add up. But there is absolutely no doubt that buying Genie Plus is going to reduce your waits overall. So if that's your goal and the money doesn't matter as much, then it's going to be worth it for you. Number 2 is if you are comfortable with technology and the My Disney Experience app, because let's be honest, everything is on your phone now, including Genie Plus, and it's not always the most intuitive thing ever. So if you are a person who is comfortable with technology, you're going to be more likely to think Genie Plus is worth it because you will have no problem navigating, refreshing, modifying, etc. your Genie Plus selections. But if you don't want to be on your phone, or if technology is not your strength, then maybe Genie Plus isn't worth it because you may struggle to make the most of it. The third thing is when you can be flexible with your day. So if you really want to have like a set timeline of when you're doing everything, including dining reservations you may already have, or times you need to be back at your resort, that kind of thing, that may be harder because you don't know until the day of when you're going to be able to get your lightning lane times. So flexibility is sort of key here because once you book your lightning lanes, then you'll know when you'll get to board that ride, but you can't really have a fixed plan in place ahead of time before you're there and getting your lightning lanes the day of. Fourth time that we think Genie Plus is really worth it is when you're traveling during the busiest times of year. So I talked earlier about how the price really varies, and so the busiest times of the year are going to be the most expensive, so that's the downside. However, this is one of the ways that you can absolutely get around those crowds. It's the best way you can get around the crowds. You may still have a bit of a line, but not nearly as much as the standby lines. And many busy times of the year have people traveling who are not planners. And so that can really work in the favor of those of us who do plan, because we're more likely to be there when the parks open. We're more likely to have a touring plan. We're more likely to know how to use Genie Plus, etc. So it's definitely, if you're going to during a busy time, you're more likely to be paying more for your park tickets, more for your hotel, and also more for Genie Plus. But it is absolutely the best way for you to avoid those long lines. And number 5 on the when is it worth it list is when visiting Magic Kingdom and Hollywood Studios. So I said at the beginning that you don't have to have it every single day. So if you're trying to pick and choose parks, Magic Kingdom and Hollywood Studios are when it is more worth it, because people tend to have a better success booking more attractions on those days, whereas Animal Kingdom and Epcot have fewer attractions, so it can be way less worth it compared to Magic Kingdom and Hollywood Studios. So let's talk about when you might want to skip it. If you fall into any of these categories, then maybe it is not worth it for you. And the first of those is if you don't care how many attractions you go on. A lot of people are going to Disney World to go on as many rides as possible, and that is a goal. But if you are not in that boat, if you are just there to sort of eat or take in the atmosphere or stroll or whatever your goals are, then maybe Genie Plus isn't worth it. We have entire trips where the only ride that we go on is the People Mover, and it doesn't even have Genie Plus or lightning lanes. So for us on those kind of trips, Genie Plus wouldn't be worth it. But for our ride heavy trips where we want to be there at park opening and do as many things as we can in a row, then it is very, very worth it. So you'll have to figure out the goals for your trip, and if rides aren't a goal, then Genie Plus probably isn't worth it. 2, if you aren't comfortable with the technology. So I mentioned this already, where if you aren't comfortable or aren't interested in being on your phone all day, then it maybe isn't as worth it for you as someone who is more adept at navigating apps and refreshing and modifying all the things that you have to do in order to get your lightning lanes. The third group of people that might want to skip getting Genie Plus are people that have multiple dining reservations in a day. So as I mentioned, you don't know until the day of when your lightning lanes are going to be. And if you already have things that are fixed, like certain reservations that are made for dining reservations or Beauty by Boutique or any of the things that you can book ahead of time, then you may not like Genie Plus because it can interfere, overlap, etc. So if dining reservations, like 2 or 3 per day, are a priority for you, Genie Plus may not be the best fit. Number 4, if you are at Animal Kingdom or Epcot. So I already talked about how Magic Kingdom and Hollywood Studios tend to be a better use of Genie Plus. You may want to skip it on your Animal Kingdom and Epcot days because there are just fewer attractions there. If you do choose to get it, it is going to help you some. It just doesn't help you as much as it does at the other parks. And the 5th group of people that may not think Genie Plus is worth it is the people using the Disability Access Service, DAS. I did a poll on Instagram once where I asked people who use the DAS system if they were also buying Genie Plus, and the results really varied. When it really seems to be beneficial to have both is if the person who qualifies for DAS isn't going to ride all of the rides, then you may benefit from having Genie Plus. However, if the person who qualifies for DAS is going to ride most of the rides and can take the members of the group with them, then you may be just fine using the DAS system without buying Genie Plus. And while we're on the topic of is it worth it, what about individual lightning lane selections? This is those fancy rides or a la carte rides that are completely separate. Every park has 1 or 2 that falls into this category. For instance, Flight of Passage or Rise of Resistance. Are they worth it? We certainly think they are, particularly the 2 that I just mentioned, Rise of Resistance and Flight of Passage, because paying for those can save you so much time. And so we do think those are worth it. Even at the parks where we don't think Genie Plus is worth it, like Epcot and Animal Kingdom, the individual lightning lane selections can be worth it. So if you want to pick and choose, that might be a smart way to do it. So we definitely think those can be a good investment, but then again, you'll have to do the math. If you want to enjoy those attractions without having to pay for it, then you can always go in the morning during early entry, or you can go last thing at night before the park officially closes. As long as you're in the line, they will let you be in the queue and on the attraction. So there are ways to do it without paying for it, but it really does save so much time that we do tend to think that most of the individual lightning lane selections, particularly at Animal Kingdom and Epcot, are worth it. Let's say you decided to buy Genie Plus and you want to really maximize this purchase because, you know, after all, we've already talked about how it's not cheap. We do have a few tips for you to make sure you're getting your money's worth. One is to practice using the app. There is a certain amount that you can do at home, but there is a lot of it that you can't do until you're at Disney World and you have already purchased Genie Plus. But if you can just get familiar with it, then you will be quicker at sort of navigating and being able to get the lightning lanes, including including the ability to modify them, which is a great new feature that has been added so that you can easily snag something that's popular like Slinky Dog Dash. And if you don't like the time that you're given, you can always go in and try to modify it, get a better time a little bit later, but just kind of get to know the app, make sure you know your way around. The second tip is to make sure you book your first attraction right at 7 a.m. You can buy it anytime between midnight and 7 a.m., the Genie Plus, anytime after midnight, I should say. And then the first lightning lane that you can book is at 7 a.m. And that's going to help you maximize the number that you can get in the day. So 7 a.m. is almost always before the park's open. So you can be in your hotel room or on the bus or wherever you are and getting your first one before you even enter the park. Third tip for maximizing is to keep an eye on when you can book your next one. So along the lines of maximizing the number of lightning lanes you can get in a day is that you need to know when you can book your next one. So I already said you can book your first one at 7 a.m. The next one that you book after that will likely be 2 hours after the park opens, or after you've used that first one. As soon as you tap in, you can book your next one. But it's a very confusing system to figure out when can I book my next one, but the app will tell you when the time that you can book your next. So you don't necessarily have to do any calculations on your own because it will tell you. And if you would like to, maybe set an alarm on your phone, and then it can remind you at that time to book your next one, or just get in the habit of, as soon as you tap into a ride to redeem a lightning lane, that you can make your next one while you're in the queue. And that way you keep them going and maximizing them throughout the day. And the last tip for maximizing Genie Plus is to not give up. So it may look like something doesn't have the times that you want, or it is out for the day, but the truth is that people will cancel and rebook all throughout the day. So you can always grab them, just refresh to get a better time or the attraction that you are wanting. Lastly, let's talk about some tips if you decide Genie Plus isn't worth it, or you are not going to buy it for your trip or on particular days of your trip. The first tip for people who don't buy it is to make sure that you maximize early entry, which is available for on-site guests, 30 minutes, usually it's 30 minutes every single day at every single park. There's certain attractions at each park are open, and so you can make sure to board those before the crowds arrive, and you won't need a lightning lane or anything like that for those attractions. Similarly, the last 2 hours of the day are less crowds usually, depending on the closing time. And so if you're not an early person, then maybe you can just do it at night and get in line for things the last hour or two that a park is open, so that you can have lower waits than the middle of the day. The second tip for people who don't want to buy Genie Plus is if you're staying in an on-site deluxe resort, then you can use extended evening theme park hours. These are usually offered twice a week at Magic Kingdom and Epcot, and you can go in after the park is closed, and you can go on most of the attractions without hardly any wait. They just need to scan your Magic Band or your park ticket to make sure that you're in a deluxe resort, and you'll be able to get on with almost no wait. The third tip is to consider riding a headliner attraction during nighttime entertainment. So if fireworks are not your thing, then that will work in your benefit as far as the rides go, because most people will be huddled around waiting and watching the fireworks. So that can be a great time to get on Seven Dwarfs Mine Train or Frozen Ever After or something like that, if you are interested in lower wait times without having to book a lightning lane. And lastly, if you are a night owl and don't mind paying for the after hours tickets, we are really thankful these events are back, because we think they're mostly a great use of time and money. You can get on a lot of attractions in a very short time without the midday heats, because they all take place at night. So they can be a really good use. Some people may even choose to do these instead of a regular park ticket for the day, because you can actually do a lot of attractions in such a short time. So I hope that has given you some things to think about. The answer of is it worth it is never an easy yes or no, because it totally depends on your budget and your priorities and all those kind of things. But hopefully after this, you will have some ideas for your own trip. So is it worth it for you? Why or why not? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching. Number 3 group of who might want to skip